Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the solitude of the bathroom, a familiar figure stood, facing a mirror that betrayed the awkward truth. Heavy brows, squared jaw, strong build. They formed a blunt declaration of masculinity that felt foreign to the owner of such features. With each day, the voice within him whispered more intensely, a murmur in the reflection, urging a long, overdue liberation. His shaking hand, driven by a blend of excitement and fear, reached for the clandestine stash tucked behind the bathroom cabinet. The soft hiss of the opening zipper revealed a hidden trove, a collection of items gathered with such careful concealment that no one could suspect the dual nature they hinted at. The silence in the apartment was a welcome accomplice, a void of judgment, allowing for the unhindered pursuit of a hidden desire. Alone in the bathroom, he was free, if only for now. No explanations needed. First came the foundation, applied with careful strokes to soften the angles of a face that had never felt quite right. Then eyeshadow, a subtle shade that took 3 YouTube tutorials to master. Mascara followed, transforming ordinary lashes into something feminine and delicate. The lipstick waited in its gold tube, ruby red, the most terrifying and thrilling purchase of all. "Come on, Jonathan. You've practiced this." The words echoed hollow in the small bathroom, belonging to someone else. A name that had always felt borrowed, like an ill-fitting suit kept out of obligation. The bedroom closet held more secrets. Behind winter coats and dress shirts worn to an office job that paid the bills but never inspired passion, a garment bag protected the final piece. Fingers hesitated on the zipper before pulling it down to reveal a shimmer of emerald green fabric. The cocktail dress had been an online purchase made at 2 a.m. after weeks of measuring and remeasuring. The padding came next, carefully positioned to create curves where nature had provided none. The brunette wig, long with gentle waves, had cost nearly a week's salary but looked natural enough to pass casual inspection. With each element in place, the transformation continued. The movements became more confident, more practiced. This wasn't the first attempt, but it was the most complete. No rushing tonight. No fear of discovery. When the final touch of ruby red lipstick was applied, the person in the mirror wasn't Jonathan anymore. She never had been. "Alyssa," she whispered, hearing the name aloud in this completed form for the first time. Her hand reached toward the mirror, fingertips pressing against the cool glass, as if trying to connect with this reflection that finally looked right. The disconnect that had haunted her entire life, the persistent wrongness she could never articulate, momentarily vanished. Tears welled in her carefully lined eyes. One escaped, creating a dark streak through the foundation on her cheek. "Damn it," she muttered, reaching for a tissue. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Mark. "You still coming out for beers tonight? Ryan's bringing that guy from accounting you thought was cool." The male friends who knew Jonathan, who expected Jonathan. The casual night out planned days ago that suddenly felt impossible. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard before typing. "Can't make it. Something came up." She added an apologetic emoji, then set the phone down. The dress felt right against her skin. The mirror reflected someone complete, someone real. Hours passed as she took photos with her phone. Different angles, different expressions, documentation of this pivotal moment when Alyssa finally recognized herself. When exhaustion finally overwhelmed her, she carefully removed the makeup, the wig, the dress. each item treated with reverence as it was stored away. But something remained changed even as she lay in bed wearing an old t-shirt. A decision had crystallized. This wouldn't be the last time. This was just the beginning. The process began slowly. Research into hormone therapy, finding a therapist who specialized in gender identity, learning the legal labyrinth of name changes. 6 months later, the closet transformation was complete. Jonathan's clothes, the uniforms of survival, were packed into donation bags. The small apartment now contained only Alyssa's wardrobe, expanding beyond that single emerald dress to include comfortable jeans, casual tops, professional attire for the office. Her brown hair had grown out enough that the wig stayed in a box on the top shelf, rarely needed. "Are you sure about giving all these away?" her friend Diana asked, helping seal another bag of men's clothing. Diana had been the first person Alyssa had trusted with her truth, the first to use her real name without hesitation. "I've never been more certain about anything," Alyssa replied, smoothing the front of her navy blue blouse. "I don't need costumes anymore." Diana nodded, understanding the weight behind those simple words. "The charity downtown opens at 10. We can drop these off before lunch." That afternoon, watching the last physical remnants of Jonathan disappear into the donation center, Alyssa felt a curious mixture of liberation and terror. The safety net was gone. There was no retreat possible now, no way to hide behind the persona she'd maintained for pretense. "You okay?" Diana asked as they walked back to the car. Alyssa considered the question, the spring breeze playing with her growing brown hair. "I think I'm finally starting to be." The world didn't immediately understand or accept Alyssa as she understood herself. Her parents struggled with pronouns and the name they hadn't chosen. Co-workers who had known Jonathan for years made mistakes, some innocent and immediately corrected, others pointed and cruel. "The Henderson account needs attention," her supervisor said during a staff meeting 3 weeks after Alyssa had officially begun presenting as herself at work. "Johnson, you handled their last quarter review, didn't you?" The silence stretched uncomfortable as everyone realized he was addressing Alyssa by her former surname. "Ms. Taylor handled the Henderson account beautifully," corrected Rachel from accounting, using Alyssa's chosen surname without missing a beat. "I'm sure she'll continue to provide excellent service." The supervisor flushed, muttered something that might have been an apology, and moved on. Later, in the break room, Rachel shrugged off Alyssa's thanks. "My brother transitioned 5 years ago. I've seen how much it matters to get it right." Small kindnesses balanced the difficulties. For every person who pulled away, someone else drew closer. For every awkward interaction, a moment of unexpected acceptance followed. The physical changes came gradually as hormone therapy began reshaping her body to align with her identity. The emotional changes were more immediate and profound. The persistent background noise of wrongness, the static that had accompanied her entire life, began to fade. 1 year after that pivotal night with the emerald dress, Alyssa hosted a small gathering in her apartment. Diana was there, along with Rachel from work and her brother Thomas, who had become an invaluable guide through the medical aspects of transition. 2 new friends from her support group rounded out the intimate circle. "I wouldn't call it a celebration exactly," Alyssa explained, wearing a casual burgundy dress that complemented her brown hair, now falling just past her shoulders. "More of an acknowledgement."
"To acknowledgements, then."
Thomas raised his glass.
"And to being who you've always been."
The others echoed the sentiment, glasses clinking in the warm light of the apartment that now felt truly like home. Later, after the guests had gone, Alyssa stood before the mirror once more. No emerald dress tonight, no wig, no elaborate makeup creating someone new. Just Alyssa, in comfortable clothes and minimal makeup, her natural brown hair framing a face softened by months of hormone therapy. The reflection showed someone still in transition, still becoming, but undeniably herself. The rupture between internal identity and external presentation had begun to heal. She touched the mirror, just as she had that first complete night. "Hello, Alyssa," she whispered. "It's nice to finally meet you." The hardest conversation had been delayed for too long. 2 years into her transition, with a legal name change complete and hormone therapy well established, Alyssa finally booked a flight home for Christmas. Her parents had been kept at a distance, phone calls and video chats carefully controlled, but she couldn't postpone an in-person visit any longer. The burgundy sweater and black slacks she packed were simple, understated choices. Her makeup supplies were minimal but carefully selected. This wasn't about making a statement. It was about finally existing authentically in the spaces of her childhood. Snow covered the front yard of her parents' suburban home when the taxi dropped her off. For a moment, she sat frozen in the back seat, staring at the holiday decorations that looked exactly as they had throughout her youth.
"You need help with your bags, miss,"
the driver asked. The ordinary courtesy, the simple, unconscious acknowledgement of her gender, steadied her. "No, thank you. I've got it." Her mother opened the door before Alyssa reached it. There was a moment of hesitation, of visual recalibration, before she stepped forward and embraced her daughter. "You look beautiful," her mother whispered, voice thick with emotion. "Your hair has gotten so long." The natural brown hair that now reached the middle of her back had become one of Alyssa's points of pride. "It takes forever to dry," she replied, the mundane observation somehow perfect for this momentous reunion. Her father appeared in the hallway behind her mother. His expression was more complex, love and confusion battling visibly. "Dad?" Alyssa said simply. He nodded, attempting a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes.
"Good to have you home,"
he managed, the you carefully chosen to avoid either name or pronoun. The first evening passed in careful conversation. Weather, traffic, safe topics that required no emotional excavation. Her mother occasionally slipped and called her Jonathan, immediately apologizing. Her father avoided calling her anything at all. After dinner, as Alyssa helped clear the table, her father retreated to his study. The soft click of the door closing felt louder than it was. "He's trying," her mother said, handing her a plate to dry. "This is just different than what he imagined for you." Alyssa placed the dry plate in the cabinet. "I'm different than what I imagined for myself too, Mom. Or rather, I'm exactly who I always was, but I never had the words or courage to say it." Her mother's hands stilled in the soapy water. "I found a photo album yesterday, from when you were about 6. There was this Halloween where you kept trying to wear my scarves as long hair." She laughed softly. "I'd forgotten that completely." "I didn't," Alyssa said quietly. Her mother nodded, understanding blooming slowly. "I wish we'd known how to listen better." The study door remained closed that night, but the next morning, Alyssa found her father at the kitchen table earlier than his usual hour. A photo album lay open before him. "Couldn't sleep," he explained unnecessarily as she poured herself coffee. "Your mother mentioned she found some old pictures. Alyssa sat across from him, cradling the warm mug between her hands. Her burgundy sweater caught the early morning light from the window.
"I always thought I knew you,"
he said finally, voice rough.
"I had this whole picture of who my child was, and now I'm realizing that maybe I never saw you clearly at all."
"You saw what I was able to show you," Alyssa replied, "and what society told both of us I was supposed to be." He turned a page in the album, revealing school photos chronicling years of discomfort disguised as normalcy.
"Were you always unhappy?"
"Not unhappy exactly. Just incomplete. Like I was playing a role in my own life." Her father nodded slowly, seeming to absorb this. His fingers traced the edge of a graduation photo. Jonathan, in an ill-fitting suit, smile not reaching the eyes.
"And now?"
"Now I'm learning what it means to be whole," she said. "It's not always easy, but it's real." The silence between them felt different than the strained quiet of the previous evening. Her father closed the album and looked directly at his daughter for what felt like the first time.
"Alyssa,"
he said, the name careful but deliberate on his lips.
"Would you show me those photos you sent your mother? The ones from your friend's wedding last month?"
It wasn't acceptance exactly, not yet, but it was a beginning. A willingness to see her as she was, not as he had imagined she should be. By the time Alyssa returned to her apartment after the holidays, something fundamental had shifted. The visit home had closed a chapter, allowing the narrative of her life to continue with fewer unresolved tensions pulling her backward. Her career advanced as her confidence grew. The careful competence that had characterized Jonathan's work transformed into the assured expertise of Alyssa, who no longer expended energy maintaining a facade. Promoted to senior analyst, she began traveling for the company, presenting at conferences where no one had any history with her but the present. In Denver, at her third such conference, she met Michael. He asked questions during her presentation that demonstrated he had actually read her research paper, not just the abstract. Later, he approached her at the hotel bar where attendees gathered for networking.
"Your analysis of market elasticity in emerging economies was fascinating,"
he said, offering his hand.
"Michael Chen, Westlake Industries."
Alyssa shook his hand, appreciating both the professional acknowledgement and, if she was honest with herself, his warm smile.
"Alyssa Taylor, and thank you, though I suspect most people would substitute tedious for fascinating." "Their loss," he replied easily. "Mind if I join you? I'd love to hear more about your methodology."
The conversation flowed from professional to personal with natural ease. He was divorced, dedicated to his career but trying to find better balance. She shared carefully edited details about her life in Chicago, her small circle of close friends, her recently adopted cat. When he asked for her number at the end of the evening, Alyssa hesitated only briefly before providing it. Dating had seemed a complication she wasn't ready to navigate, but something about Michael's straightforward nature appealed to her. Their first official date happened a month later when his business brought him to Chicago. He took her to dinner at a small Italian restaurant where the lighting flattered her burgundy dress and the wine loosened the knot of anxiety she'd carried all day. "I was nervous about tonight," she admitted over dessert.
"Me too," he confessed. "It's been 2 years since my divorce was finalized, and I'm still relearning how to do this."
His honesty invited reciprocation. "I haven't actually dated much," she said.
"Ever?" "Really? I find that hard to believe."
The moment stretched between them. Alyssa had reached the point in her journey where being transgender wasn't the first thing she told people about herself. But dating created complicated questions of disclosure. There are aspects of my life that have made dating challenging, she said carefully. I've been focused on other things. Michael nodded, seeming to respect the boundaries of her statement.
Well, I'm glad you made an exception tonight.
3 more dates followed over the next 2 months, each time when his work brought him to Chicago. By the 4th date, Alyssa knew the conversation couldn't be postponed any longer. They walked along the lakefront after dinner, her burgundy coat buttoned against the evening chill. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her makeup minimal but carefully applied. I need to tell you something, she said during a pause in their conversation. About me. About my past. Michael's expression remained open, curious rather than concerned.
I'm listening.
Alyssa had rehearsed this speech, but the prepared words abandoned her. Instead, she spoke plainly. I'm transgender. I transitioned 4 years ago. The statement hung in the night air between them. Michael was quiet for long enough that anxiety began to pool in her stomach.
Thank you for telling me,
he finally said.
That can't have been easy.
It gets both easier and harder, she admitted. Easier because I'm more comfortable with myself. Harder because the longer I live as myself, the more I fear people's reactions when they learn about my past. Michael considered this, his pace slowing as they walked.
Can I ask questions? Or would you rather I do some research on my own first?
The question itself revealed a thoughtfulness that made her shoulders relax slightly. You can ask. I might not answer everything, but I appreciate you wanting to understand. Their walk extended for hours that night, conversation weaving through her journey, his questions, shared perspectives on identity and authenticity. By the time he walked her to her door, something had deepened between them.
I'd like to keep seeing you, Alyssa,
he said simply.
If that's something you want, too.
She studied his face in the hallway light, searching for hesitation or uncertainty. Finding none, she nodded. I'd like that very much. Their relationship developed with deliberate care. Michael's job kept him traveling, which provided a natural pace that allowed trust to build gradually. When he eventually relocated to Chicago for a promotion, they had already established a foundation strong enough to weather the adjustments of greater proximity. 1 year into their relationship, on a weekend trip to Michigan's wine country, Michael proposed. The emerald ring he offered matched the earrings she wore, a conscious choice that told her how closely he had paid attention to her preferences.
I love you, Alyssa Taylor,
he said, kneeling beside her on a hillside overlooking rows of grapevines. Exactly as you are. Will you marry me? The wedding was small but joyful. Alyssa wore an elegant gown in ivory, her brown hair styled in loose waves down her back. Diana served as her maid of honor. Her parents attended, her father walking her down the aisle with tears in his eyes that matched her own.
You look radiant,
he whispered as they reached the altar. The word choice, so specifically feminine, was not lost on Alyssa. Marriage brought new dimensions to her identity. Wife, partner, stepmother to Michael's teenage daughter from his first marriage. Each role integrated into the tapestry of who she had become, authentic extensions rather than the ill-fitting masks of her past. 5 years after that transformative night with the emerald dress, Alyssa found herself cleaning out the storage closet in their new house. Near the back, behind winter coats and rarely used luggage, she discovered a box she had packed during her move from the apartment. Inside lay the emerald dress, carefully preserved. the brunette wig she had worn before her own hair grew out, the makeup from those early days of discovery. Michael found her sitting on the closet floor, the open box beside her, the dress across her lap.
"What's all this?"
he asked, settling beside her.
"Artifacts," she said softly, "from when I was becoming me."
He touched the fabric of the dress gently.
"It's beautiful. I've never seen you wear this color."
"It was the first thing I ever bought that felt truly right," she explained. "The dress I was wearing when I finally recognized myself in the mirror." Michael nodded, understanding the significance.
"A butterfly's chrysalis," he said. "Important, but no longer needed."
Alyssa considered this metaphor, finding truth in it. The items in this box had been essential to her emergence, but she had long since learned to fly with her own wings.
"What should we do with it?"
Michael asked. Alyssa carefully refolded the dress, considering. "I'm not sure. Part of me wants to preserve it like a museum piece from my own history, but another part wonders if someone else might need it, if it could help another person find themselves." Later that week, after careful research, Alyssa donated the dress and accessories to an organization supporting transgender youth. She kept only one item, a small bottle of ruby red lipstick, nearly empty, but still carrying the memory of that first complete vision of herself. On her 35th birthday, Diana and Rachel organized a surprise gathering at the house. Friends from different chapters of her life mingled in the garden. Colleagues, neighbors, members of her support group who had become chosen family. "Speech!" someone called as Michael brought out the cake, candles flickering in the evening air. Alyssa laughed, smoothing the front of her burgundy dress, a new one, but in the shade that had become her signature color. Her brown hair, now with a few strands of silver at the temples, was styled in a sleek bob that framed her face. "I'm not sure what to say," she began, looking around at the circle of faces illuminated by string lights and candles. "Except, thank you for seeing me, for giving me the space to become fully myself." Her gaze found her parents, who had driven in for the celebration. Her father raised his glass slightly in acknowledgement, his acceptance now complete and unquestioning. "Someone very wise once told me that transition isn't just about becoming someone new," she continued. "It's about becoming who you've always been, underneath all the layers of expectation and fear. I'm grateful every day that I found the courage to discover that person." As the gathering continued around her, Alyssa found a moment of quiet reflection. The journey from that bathroom mirror to this garden full of love had not been easy or straight. There had been setbacks, heartaches, moments of doubt. But standing here in the gathering twilight, surrounded by people who knew her, truly knew her, she felt the rightness of her path with bone-deep certainty. The emerald dress had been a beginning, not an end. The ruby lipstick had drawn the first outlines of a portrait she was still creating with each authentic choice. "Happy?" Michael asked, appearing at her side with a glass of champagne. Alyssa accepted the glass, considering the question with the thoroughness it deserved. "Content," she replied finally. "Which is better than happy, I think. Happiness comes and goes, but contentment has roots." He nodded, his arm slipping around her waist as they watched their friends and family enjoying the evening.
"To putting down roots, then,"
he said, clinking his glass against hers.
"And to the woman you've always been."
The title on her driver's license, the name on her mailbox, the pronouns used without hesitation by those around her. These external markers had aligned at last with her internal truth. Alyssa Taylor stood in her garden, her husband by her side, the future stretching before her not as a costume to endure, but as a life to embrace. In the quiet of that moment, she remembered the words she had whispered to her reflection years ago. "Hello, Alyssa. It's nice to finally meet you." The greeting had become a conversation, then a relationship, and finally a complete integration of self. The mirror no longer showed a stranger or even a revelation, just Alyssa, exactly as she was meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!